Watch Dead Hot, now streaming.
I really wish that the music would work, because I feel like half the time it doesn't want to. Audio outputs. I don't understand. Please. I just want funny little music in my background, guys. That's all I want in life. Is funny little music in my background. Hello, welcome. Today I show you how to draw a cat. That is the whole stream today. That's all we're doing. Probably until about 3:30. So, just little short stream, how to draw a cat. I will teach how to draw a cat. Not lonely in the chat. Yeah, real. Okay. I suppose we should switch it. Yeah, she's cooking. Alright, can you guys see my screen alright? Can we see us? Can we see us? I suppose we should switch it. Okay. There's a little bit of a delay. Okay, yeah. It looks like you guys can see me. So, here's the fun little thing that we're going to learn how to do today. We are going to learn how to draw a cat. So, the thing about cats is that, fun fact, they're liquid. This is why I like drawing them, because they're very, like, their anatomy is very fluid, and you can manipulate it very easily. So the first thing that we're going to do just to warm up is we're probably going to trace a couple of these guys, just so that we understand the basic anatomy. So, with most every character you draw, whether it be a cat or anything else, like a person, a dog, or a whatever, there's something called a line of movement. So if you trace along the whole thing, there's a motion there. The pose is like, it's fluid, it's moving. So what we want to do when we draw usually is, unless we're doing like a base pose, if we want to do a dynamic pose, we want to make sure we have that line of movement very clear. So, after that, we can block in the shapes. So, we have our line of movement. Okay, the cat's going to be going this way. What I like to do is I like to block out my head first. My head and my line of movement. So, we're going to start just by tracing them, and then we're going to do it again without tracing them. So, the thing with cats is they've got funny little shoulders here. So, their bodies are like a bean. Like, with cats, you can kind of just make a bean and call it a day. Like, if I wanted to make a cat, like, let's say I want to make a cat right here. I can make a little bean. And then you make a little tail. Boom, that's a cat. That's a cat. That's literally it. Because of how cats are designed, I suppose, they're very fluid. They're like easy to draw by nature. It's kind of awesome. So, just filling in those little tiny shapes. The muzzles, I like to start with a little circle, and then I kind of fill in the brow line to kind of go with it. And then a big tool for me that I find really helpful is when you're drawing anything with a face, I like to mark out these little guidelines of where on the face the eyes are going to go, so that I know which direction he's facing. So So I'm not perfectly following the thing here. I'm mostly focusing on the body shape itself. The faces, especially when you're drawing like cartoons like I do, they don't necessarily have to be perfect. But it's good to like have a good map. Now, cat eyes, they're very circular, and then they have this little thing on the bottom. It's this little like tear duct. It's very fun. So I always like to add a little bit of fluff to mine. So notice that there's a little bit of fluff there. And I gotta add some butt fluff. Butt fluff is very important. That is a part of cat anatomy. They need butt fluff, or they're not really even a cat anymore. They have to have butt fluff. That's a very real artistic rule. So I'm gonna fill in my cat tail. The biggest thing about cattails is that when you're cartooning them, it's nice to have the end of it be a little bit wider, because it gives more emphasis to the end, because our eyes are drawn to shapes that are variable. So if I drew that as a cattail, that's a lot less appealing than something like that, because our eyes are drawn to different shapes. So I'm going to give him little shoulder blades here. So you kind of mark out where all the joints are going to be. So I see that there's a little back of his calf there, so I'm going to mark that down. And then for the toes, for the little paws, I like to just put a little thing there, a little half circle. And that helps me mark out pretty easily where the toes are supposed to be. It's not super visible on this picture. I'm going to add it just for the sake of understanding the anatomy. So cats, they have this little little bump on their little toes. It's because of how their legs are shaped. Cats are essentially walking on their little knuckles. So it's good to have that be apparent. This leg's in a weird little spot. It's kind of turned around. So we're going to just make sure that we show that he's turned around. Add some butt fluff. And then we're going to turn around. The front paws are a little different because excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm still a little sick. The front paws are a little bigger. Think of it as like hands versus feet. The hands are sometimes more like just larger in a lot of animals, because there's more that they need to do. So they tend to have a little bit more like weight to them. So they're a little bit bigger. And then it goes backwards, and I like to add a little bit of fluff here, just because I think that conveys the joint really well. Then we'll add our other little toe. Remember that they have the little notch here, that little guy. And then we'll add some belly fluff. So that is how you trace a cat. So you're left with a pretty good cat shape, I suppose. That is a weird way that cat turned its foot. Once again, cats are liquid. Their anatomy, sometimes they move in horrible, terrifying ways. And it's sometimes a nightmare to draw from a reference. So that's our first trace of a cat. We'll do one more, and then we'll move on to trying to draw these same two cats with just the reference on the side, because then we're going to talk about the pose itself, not necessarily just the anatomy. So I'll take this, I'll lower my opacity a little bit. What color should we make this line? Let's make it like orange, I suppose. Yeah, why not? So this one, he's got a little head. So always mark out your head first and then your movement line. Actually, I might turn this to a darker color. Let's try like blue. Yeah. Way easier to see. So mark out where your head is. Maybe where that mouth is too. And then add your gesture line where that movement is coming from. One thing about posing is that there tends to be a static part of the pose, like a smooth part of the pose and a part with a lot of stuff on it. Because contrast, it makes the poses look a lot nicer. So it helps sometimes with posing to make one side of it really smooth and the other side very busy. Like, when a lot of artists draw, like, say, a human leg, you could go like this, right? Or you could have it go like this. This one's gonna be a little bit more appealing simply because it draws the eye to different places, and it, like, the contrast is very important. So you'll notice that in nature too sometimes, that there's sides that are more smooth, like here, and there's sides that are like more busy. So again, with the tail thing, you'll notice that the cat's tail, it's not usually perfectly cylindrical. It's usually like frayed a little bit at the end. And once again, I'm trying my best to have busy side and clean side. So we're gonna add our little ears. Ears are just kind of triangles. You can kind of mark where the outside of the ear is. That's helpful sometimes. And then I always like to mark out the neck so that I can pay attention to the size of it, so that I make sure I don't give it like a horrifyingly beefy neck like a horse. So cats tend to be very long, so we're gonna do another big long bean shape, and we're gonna remember that they have those big old shoulder blades. There's his hips, and this paw, you can still see that little bit of oh, that was a terrible paw. You can still kind of see the structure there. But when you're drawing paws like on the underside, I find it helpful to mark out where like the paw itself, like the paw pads would be. So it's not always like, I don't always draw it all the time, but it's sometimes very helpful in conveying that's the underside of the paw. And then we'll finish this guy up. Another little half circle. This is a really good one because you can really see that that turn to the side here. I like to exaggerate that with my art personally. It's not as big and robust in real life, but it's still very interesting. So I'm going to make my interesting side and my plain side. Plain side, interesting side. And then I'll add some chest fluff. And then we're going to use our line again to mark out where our facial features would be. Okay. So we've got our two cats here. These are our fully traced cats. I'll write that down next to them, so put them in a little thing and I'll say that these are traced. I'll put that in there. So now that we've traced our cats, we're going to take a look at the pose itself. And like how we can cartoonify it. So I hate realism. I can do it, but I hate it. So if you're like me and you want to work on the character design of the cats, this is where it's good to listen in here. So a big thing with at least how I draw cats and how I do character design in general is that shape language is incredibly important. The biggest way to tell a character's personality can be through the shapes that you use. Like, when you immediately, when you see, like, a character that's very triangle, let's say I'm making, like, a triangle cat. Very triangle cat. Your immediate thoughts about them could be, like, that they're very strict, or they're possibly evil, or something along those lines. So, the more hard edges and points that you use, the more generally it's going to give off, like, a spikier, output. Literally, because there's literal spikes on it. But softer, rounder shapes are great for characters that are, like, sweeter, or kind, or, like, chubby. Oh, I love drawing chubby cats. They're very fun. But you can use that shape language to your advantage, to help show what kind of a character they are. So, for example, I'm going to pull up an example here. Let's take Gorsheart, for example. The guy. So Gorsheart, because of how he came off in the game as a very silly guy, I very specifically wanted to make him very round and portly, like a little bit short, because I knew that would convey a certain, like, type of character. So his shapes are very soft, very plush. I think it's gotten, like, more so the more I've drawn him. Like, this is, I believe, the first ever time I drew him. So, like, if I were to redraw him even now, I'd probably make him even shorter. So he could turn out to be, like, really, like, really squished. Really squishy, really fluffy. Very, very squishable, very squeezable. Because I know that shape language is going to convey his character. Taking a completely different example. Let's see if I can find him. Where is it? Do I have it? Oh, yeah, I do. This is a personal character of mine for the Mountain Territories. I haven't introduced him yet. So this is Whitewater. He is very, very pointy. If you'll notice, I've made it very clear through his design that he is not a nice guy. He's very mean. He's got pointed eyes. Everything about him is pointy and triangular. Why will it not let me draw? Oh, sorry. What? Let me cook. Oh, that's why. I gotta move it into the frame. That would help. Okay. He's very pointy. He's got lots of triangle bits to him. Triangles, and I've found that pentagons also convey this. They're both very pointy things. Very pointy things. Oh my gosh, why is this so hard? Boom. very pointy right here, very pointy right here. Even his eyes are pointy. And it makes you not want to trust him. Which, in some cases, the kind cats that look intimidating. You don't necessarily have to follow this rule to a T. Kind characters don't have to be round. Mean characters don't have to be spiky. It's the base. It's like the base of what your mind comes to. For intimidating characters that are like nice, I like to make them very broad and pointy, kind of like this. But then mix in a couple of elements of those soft features. Like, for example, I can find a good one. Raven Whisper. He is very pointy, very large. I wanted him to look huge. I wanted him to be somebody that you wouldn't necessarily want to approach, but he's actually a total sweetheart when you meet him. So the biggest thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to make him mostly pointy, but the thing that sets him apart from a character like Whitewater, where he's all pointy, all scary, is his eyes. He's got very round eyes, which both lends itself to him being not as scary as he seems, and it also can be played off in a way that it's almost unsettling, like how round they are. The juxtaposition of shapes can really help your design if you choose which ones you want to emphasize. Like, with Whitewater, I very specifically wanted him to have these big ol' eyebrows, because I knew that it would be very helpful for having him be very expressive. Like, he can go from like that to like that really easily, and that's something about his character. Before you draw a character, it's really important to have the idea of who they are in your brain. That's what I've found, at least. Obviously, I'm not a professional artist. I have not gone to school for art. This is just personal character design tips that I've seen along the way. A good person that I would say is a good other person to look at is Tennille Flowers. His art is very heavy on shape language. If you look at their different pieces, you can see the different shapes and how they play out together. Give me a second here. Another tool that I found is really helpful is picking other animals and basing designs off of them. Like, for example, Cavern Feather. Cavern Feather is very smooth, very plush. I wanted her to look like she could potentially be very good at, like, swimming or something very, like, long. So a good rule of thumb, especially with Warrior Cats art, is to base them on other species. Cavern Feather is based on river otters, because I knew that she was kind of a sneaky, slithery kind of cat. So she's very round in that way. She's very long. She's very maneuverable. She's almost like a ferret or a stoat. I can't tell you just how to draw a cat. It's not as simple as just cat. It's very dependent on what the character is. Who are you trying to draw specifically? But you can take stuff like this. Like, I'm gonna go back to our little starter cats here. Let's pick some designs. Like, sorry, my phrasing is really bad. I'm terrible at explaining things, so I apologize if this makes no sense. let's pick a couple character traits and then see what different kinds of characters you can make depending on the character traits. So we're gonna use this guy. Let's try doing it twice, and we're gonna do it depending on character traits. This is a tool that's used very often in TV and movies of shape language. So it's a good practice to get into the habit of, because what I've noticed is if you're going strictly off anatomy for character design, the characters tend to look very similar. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it doesn't convey their personalities as much. Sometimes it works for very, like, example would be like Steven Universe. Like specific types of gems look very similar to each other. It doesn't necessarily depend on their personality, but the gems, like the big characters, do have that shape language. Or like something like South Park, they don't use very much shape language, because you kind of learn about the characters throughout the show. It's very dependent on what your goal is. For stuff like Warrior Cats, I find shape language very helpful. So, let's pick like 2 character traits. Can you guys come up with 2 character traits for me? For the little orange cat on the top, this guy. Is he a funny guy? Is he a sneaky guy? Is he spooky scary? Is he intimidating but nice? Is he nervous? Yeah, I just need 2 character traits. Come on. We got this. Come on. I believe in you. In the meantime, I'm going to drink some tea. Give me a sec. Kind and wise. Okay. Now we get to talk about old characters. I don't want to go to Google and get another picture. But I am going to talk about this. Wise, while not directly, like, wise does not equal old, but old sometimes equals wise. Correlation versus causation. A lot of the times, older cats look very scruffy, and very, like, the best way I can describe it is, like, wizard-y? I don't know. Like, you ever seen, like, a little old wizard man, and he's like, hello, welcome to my castle. This is his beard, by the way. I can't draw wizards. Give me a sec. Wizard man. Like, they feel very, very wise. You don't know what they're doing. Like Dumbledore. A character like Dumbledore, or, a character like Yellowfang. They tend to have, very expressive shape language in that way. And that tends to manifest itself as, like, scruffy, almost. So, let's say that we're doing this guy. So we're gonna stick with, like, the character itself. I'm gonna try to stick with the pose pretty relatively. So I'm trying to do a very basic pose before I do anything else. So if you'll notice, a big thing that I do when I'm drawing is the first thing that I do is I gesture draw. Gesture drawing, you might have heard of it, might have not. It's a technique used by artists, both to warm up and to work on posing. I'm still newish to it, but it's a very helpful tool. So I draw it very quickly. I'll make that really little. and then I'll elaborate more on the shapes. So if he's an old guy, sometimes old animals tend to look kind of scruffy and saggy, and I can see he's got kind of like a big chest, a big like ear floof thing going on. So like cheek fluff. Yes, he's got a lot of cheek fluff going on. So I'm gonna choose some shapes, and I'm gonna see where they lead me. So I'm thinking something like something very almost like wizard beardy. I'm sorry, I cannot sit in a chair right, and it's like detrimental to everything. Maybe he's got like a funny little downturned nose. And then I always like to repeat the same pattern on the other side. Make that be symmetrical. So, another good thing to keep in mind is that things that are different look really good next to each other. So if I have, okay, I'm gonna draw two faces here. So let's compare big and small, for example. If I have big ears and little eyes, that is going to look different than big ears, big eyes. This one in character design is going to serve you better ultimately because small things look good next to big things. Like if I still wanted to keep the big eyes, so let's say I did my big ears and I wanted to have big eyes to go with it, it's like checks and balances. I would have to do something else that's small. So I'd have to give him a little small mouth. Because if I do everything big... Sorry, these are very fast drawings. That just looks like a really, really basic design. It doesn't have the appeal or the shape language. So, if I have something like, if I have something like this guy where he has very big cheek fluff, I'm probably going to make his neck pretty skinny. Maybe I'll add a little bit of floof towards the bottom. But if I want to make certain aspects of him big, then other aspects of him need to be small. Like, let's say I want to go for big ears and big patches of fluff. The rest of the design I'm going to make pretty small and slim. So I'll give him little skinny little legs. But I'll put those big patches of fluff on him. This is so rough, I'm sorry. Because those big things look good next to those little things. Another thing, I love to do this with tails, is the thing I was talking about with them being bigger at the end. Sometimes I like to really exaggerate that, because there's an actual cut of hair in cats where they like give it like a little lion tail, and I love that so much. It looks so stupid in real life, and I love it. But I'll make that end of the tail really big. And I've noticed another thing, that downturned eyes tend to give an older look. So if I want him to be wise, maybe I'll have him have these old eyes. I hate where those are positioned. I'm going to move those up. And because everything feels pretty small on this face, I think I'm going to give him big old eyebrows. So that is, I hope, an appealing design. And keep in mind, appealing does not mean conventionally attractive. That is not the same thing. Appealing means appealing as in the character design leads your eye and conveys emotion. He looks very scraggly, like a funny little old guy. And that is what I'm going for. We can exaggerate things more. If I want to make him really skinny, I'll make him really skinny. So we're diverging from the original pose here, right? But we're still... Yeah. So that's the big thing with character design. You just need to kind of figure out which shapes you want. Which parts of the design are most important. Sometimes basing them on animals. I'll make a little list for you guys before we probably end here soon. So let's make a little handy dandy little list. I'll put it in green because green is my favorite. How to warrior cat design. So, big thing, shape language. Pointy versus smooth. Our shape language also kind of translates into that rule of the having smooth things, smooth versus bumpy. Like, I'll draw a leg. Based on real things. Doesn't necessarily have to be an animal. It can be a concept. If you want your cat to look like, I don't know, like a snowball personified or like a tree, you can use elements of those things and the shapes of those things to communicate things about that character. And then big and little. So our big things look good next to little things. Little things look great next to big things. So those are the main things about drawing in general for character design. I feel like this derailed from how to draw a cat. This is my process when I'm designing, especially for like Ridge Clan and stuff like that. So that's it. Of course, take as many screenshots as you like. I'll pull up this little guy. I'll put him in the corner. Little corner guy. Look at him, he's so cute. Yeah. Take as many screenshots as you like. I'll probably, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this afterwards. I don't know. Yeah, this is how my process works. Biggest thing. Oh yeah, also use references. Yeah, these are the big things. The big things. Thought I'm probably gonna leave it there. Just because it's been a good little short stream. I wanted to establish some things. Just to kind of explain myself. This is why I do what I do. Yeah, before I go, I think the one thing that I am gonna do is I'm going to take a look at, I think I'll do the ones from, like, I don't know, I'll do these ones. So, we'll put them on the bottom here. So, let's discuss the shape language of these guys. I should make that a new no-see. He's kind of silly. Very pointy. It's just, he's very intimidating. He's got big paws. He's got a big mustache, but then he's got little eyes, which kind of conveys that she's a very complex character. She's very, like, she's got a lot of different things going on there. Briar, he's overall pretty soft, but he's got some of those sharp shapes, and that's mainly because I wanted to point out the fact that he and Elkstar are brothers. So that was very important to me. I wanted to show that they are siblings. But, like, I also wanted to show the contrast of them, even though they are siblings. Eagle, he is very round. I used that tactic of everything else being very lanky and slim, and then him having these big old ears. He reminds me of a serval a lot. That's kind of the biggest inspiration that was for him. Batspec, he's very, very pointy. Another last thing is that you can use, for coloring, different colors have different meanings, just connotations to them. That is not color theory, that's just, that's literature, and the way that you use those colors is color theory. So, for example, like, I wanted to use all cool colors for, Sagewind, so I used all cool colors. I wanted to mix cool colors, and, like, I wanted to mix purple, and then I wanted to use green, so I used purple and green, because this is, yes, it's like a black, but it's a green black. It's not straight black. This one, I wanted to mix cool and warm colors a lot, and I took advantage of the fact that yellow and purple are complementary colors. So she's very, like, orangey yellow, but then she has all those purple and pink flowers, which I thought was very helpful for her design. Wolfsight, I love his design so much. He gives that scraggly dad that I was talking about before, and I made him very droopy. Everything about his design goes downward, except his ears. His ears are the only thing that go upward. It contrasts everything else about his design. His ears and his eyes, I suppose. What was her name? I don't remember. She's very elegant. I wanted to make her very pointy. Kind of like Rarity from My Little Pony. So she's very pointy. She's very elegant. And for her colors, I chose very, soft, bright colors. I wanted her to appear kind of like a deer. So I, especially her nose being very, very long and soft, was me thinking she could look like a deer. Raven Whisper, I talked about him before. He, big guy, but he's a sweetheart. And then Sky. I don't remember. His design, he's very, very spiky and outwards, to show that he's very outgoing and ready to do stuff. So, shape language is very important. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. So, I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your day. And yeah, be nice to each other. Yeah. Have a lovely day.